Yeah. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome into 5 on the Floor Live on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, turn the notifications on. We got a lot to get to tonight. We're going to do this show a little bit differently than we typically do. We hope you enjoyed the intro song. That's the last time you'll hear it. Our guy Mercy has already redone it. We just didn't have time to get it up in time, up for this particular podcast, but we will for the podcast going forward, so there will be no buckets in there anymore. Jimmy Butler is being traded to the Golden State Warriors. The trade is not yet official. It's a key point here because there's still a lot of moving parts. It hasn't been officially called into the league, but it has been agreed upon. There's one piece, at least one piece, that's kind of still hanging out there that needs to be addressed, and we're going to get to the trade going forward. We do have some contractual things we need to do here. So this is what we're going to do just to address the game, because this happened during the game. We knew this would happen. I'm Ethan Skolnick. Follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow me at Greg Sylvander. Alex Toledo. You can follow me at Tropical Blanket. Brady Hawk. You can follow me at Brady Hawk 305. The Heat won 108-101. They're now a game over 500. Do this because this is the only thing we're going to do about the game tonight. Okay, that's it. Okay, do the player of the game, and that's it. I'm going to let Brady talk, and then we're going to talk about the trade.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
Brady, tell me, because I didn't watch it.
I don't think many people watched it. I think more people were on their phones, including me. So I could realize that there's nobody really cared about the game tonight. But I mean, look, the whole thing about tonight is changing the direction of this team, changing the direction of this build. And 2 of your key factors in changing this, Tyler Hero and Nikola Jovic, who's one of your key young pieces that you're going to be moving forward here with, had massive games. I mean, Tyler Hero, big bounce back game. He's struggled ever since, getting the All-Star nod. 30 points tonight, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. I just thought he looked better in general. He was just moving better, attacking, mid-range pulls. Like he's not afraid to kind of get to all 3 levels right now. He's not just doing the only 3-point thing. Nikola Jovic is kind of the main player of the game to me. I just think the way he was perfect for most of the game. I think he missed a shot late, so he ended up being 8 for 9, but he had like 23 points on 8 of 8 shooting for most of the game there. It's just a really strong game from him. They put the ball in his hands a lot more right now, but most of all, he's just shooting it really well. Like he is legitimately shooting off the catch at such a high level right now. So credit to him there. Ever since Jimmy got traded, Terry Rozier, I think he saw the Dennis Schroeder news like when it initially broke, and he decided he was going to start hooping again because he had 20 points on 8 of 17 shooting. He was playing really well early in the game. I mean, the catch and shoot stuff that we keep talking about, he leaned into early, and then it kind of led to a couple decent attacks. So getting 20 points off the bench for Terry Rozier, you got to point that out at any moment. And then Bam was good too. I mean, Bam seems like there's a little bit of a rhythm right now where he's found his mid-range game. It's like, if he's in a bind, he's going to just look for that dotted line or free throw line, and he's just shooting that shot with such confidence right now. They came out the gate in this game, and like the one thing that was clear was like Bam was going to handle more than anybody else. Like the first 6 possessions of the game was just Bam dribbling on the perimeter. So they're leaning into this right now. Bam's playing well. He's playing confident. He had a big shot late. So yeah, I mean, it was mostly Jovic, Hero, Bam, Rozier. They didn't get a lot from these other guys. I mean, Ware got in foul trouble early, so there was some things, but they got to win, and this is what we know this team's going to be, battling back and forth from 500. But now, adding PJ Tucker to the squad, maybe they change it in a positive direction.
Okay, so you had to get that in. All right, so here's what we're going to do. This is a segue. Alex, the play of the night's going to be the trade. So go ahead, roll it.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
Play of the day is the trade. So here we are. We are less than 24 hours from the trade deadline. Greg, you and I spoke about the benefit to getting this done the night before. Yeah. Because if something else does pop up, now you have time. So we will talk about that as we go forward. But let's get into the mechanics of the deal and where it stands. And I guess before we do want to mention, because I did some reporting earlier in the day about the Heat's interest in Kevin Durant. That was real. Appears Kevin Durant is staying in Phoenix. Phoenix made a big mess, and it turns out they're not really going to do anything. So they've essentially created all this friction on their team, tried to get Beal to waive the no-trade clause, were open to trading Durant, who really didn't want to leave, and it just appears they're stuck and aren't going to do anything. Now, there are some that are reporting that the Heat turned down better offers that would have led to Jimmy going to Phoenix. I haven't heard that specifically to this point, but let's talk about what the Heat actually did get in this trade and what is still out there. Greg.
Yeah, so right now it's a huge deal, and there are a lot of moving parts, and it's not confirmed, and it's not signed, sealed, and delivered. So there's just, I would caution everyone that we need to wait till the ink dries on how this trade maps out. But initially, we'll go through it like this. The Golden State Warriors get Jimmy Butler. Let's get that one out of the way. And he's also out of the Heat locker room. Hooray. The Heat get Andrew Wiggins, PJ Tucker, and they also, for now, get Kyle Anderson, along with a top 10 protected 2025 first-round draft pick from the Golden State Warriors. We could talk more about the pick later, but it's a good pick. And along with that, the Pistons are getting Lindy Waters and Josh Richardson, along with a second-round pick. And then the Jazz get Dennis Schroeder. That's essentially, he's going, instead of from Golden State to Miami, he's going to Utah. There's a $2 million difference in PJ Tucker's salary versus Dennis Schroeder's. The Heat found it viable to use the second round pick swap that they got from Indiana in the Thomas Bryant deal to get that done. But now they're looking for another home. I thought they initially found one with Toronto and Kyle Anderson, but they haven't found that yet. And that is a big part of this deal. It's still a lot of moving pieces, but the net you can count on being in Miami is Andrew Wiggins, PJ Tucker reunion, the draft pick, which will likely convey in 2025, and still to be determined on Kyle Anderson.
Okay, let's get through the specifics of it. The Kyle Anderson part matters because the Heat did not intend to keep him. So
correct.
That's important. They do have some time now. I've mentioned before that there have been other deals that have fallen apart, and Andy has figured out a way to fix them. Like the way they got Jimmy in the first place when the Dallas part of that fell apart, and he had to fix it with the Clippers. So we'll see what happens before 3 o'clock tomorrow. The second thing is that the Wiggins part of this, we have been telling you that they were open to taking players they liked beyond 2026. They like Andrew Wiggins. He's 29 years old. He's shooting 38% from three on pretty good volume. A lot of what we talk about on the pod tonight, we are going to do full pods on. Okay, we can't get to everything tonight. We're going to do a full pod on Wiggins. We're going to do a full pod on a Jimmy retrospective because I think he deserves it regardless of what's happened here at the end. We're going to do a full pod on the Warriors' chances with Jimmy because I think that's interesting. Currently, they're not in a playoff spot. They're tied. There's 4 teams tied between 8th and 11th in the West, 1 game over 500. So right now, they're not even in the playoffs. Okay, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Jimmy out there with Draymond. Particularly because I know not everybody in that organization was sold on making this trade. And then we're going to do another podcast on the 2025 draft that the Heat wanted to get into, which is a very strong draft. And this is a quality pick, actually. The pick is likely to be delivered to them this year. We'll see. It actually benefits them if you want the pick, right, to make the playoffs, Jimmy playing well actually helps them in some ways to get the pick this year in this particular draft. So we'll be following that as well. The key part that Greg mentioned too is that if it doesn't divest in the next 2 years, then it becomes unprotected in 2027. So this, unlike the 3 Phoenix picks, which everybody was talking about, this is a good pick. Okay. That to me is the prize of this trade. The Wiggins part I felt was neutral to slightly better than neutral. I think he's going to fit. I think he starts right away. We all agree on that. He starts probably at the 3. If you guys had to guess, is it? Well, I'm sorry, Sean. I know we're not supposed to say positions. If you guys were to guess right now, Duncan stays in the starting lineup and Wiggins replaces Highsmith. Is that the likely scenario? Yeah. Okay. So essentially, you're getting a better player than Haywood at that spot. Wiggins, you can argue, is a better defender than Jimmy at this stage. Again, we'll do podcasts on this. He's obviously not the force of nature that Jimmy is in a bunch
better on-ball defender for sure.
For on-ball, for sure, yes. Off-ball, Jimmy, I still think plays at an elite level when he wants to. Offensively, Wiggins is a better three-point shooter. He's not going to give you the stuff in the low post that Jimmy gives you, the mismatch hunting or any of that kind of stuff. But he's having a strong season. This is actually his best regular season since he made the All-Star team, Wiggins. So, and there's a couple of other fun facts here. He was traded for Kevin Love 2014. Now he's playing with Kevin Love. Josh Richardson is traded in a trade with Jimmy Butler. They were traded for each other. They ended up playing together. So there's a bunch of little things that go with this deal. But to me,
Philadelphia thing, the fact that he was traded mid-game
in Philadelphia. To me, the single biggest the prize of this is the first round pick because it gives them a little bit more flexibility whether they want to keep it or they want to move it. I think the Wiggins part of this, again, he will fit. I think Spo will get the most out of him. It reminds me a little bit, I mentioned this on playback, and thanks to the more than 500 that were with us on playback tonight. It reminds me a little bit of when they got Luol Deng after losing LeBron. Obviously, this is not the same level of player. Jimmy is not LeBron, but it gave you something a little bit different. You were at least able to plug the hole. And Spo unlocked Luol Deng. You put him at the 4, and he got a very, very strong season out of him. I can see him getting a good season out of Wiggins, who's just 29 years old at this point. My overall view on the trade is they did well enough under the circumstances. It's not a home run. It keeps them in the game without seriously damaging their future. That's kind of where this is at. I'll go to Brady and Alex on this, but I just want to go back to Greg one more time. Wiggins is no alpha, LOL. I knew that was going to come. He's a very quiet personality. He is. He's not Jimmy. He is the opposite of Jimmy. Trust me.
That's hilarious.
I spent some time around Wiggins in his rookie season when he was extremely hyped. I was doing a story on him for Bleacher Report, so I followed him to 4 different games. I hardly got 3 words out of the guy. I ended up talking to Zach LaVine the entire time because Wiggins didn't talk a whole lot at that time. He's not Jimmy. But he may fit
that's a
better.
good thing for now.
For now, I think it'll loosen it'll loosen things up a little bit. But Greg, let me go to you on this, and then we'll cycle back. And I want to get Alex and Brady's views of the trade. If they can't dump Anderson now, I mean that's kind of problematic, right? Like because I don't understand the purpose of the PJ Tucker thing. That's the one thing I don't get. Are they expecting him to play? He's 39 years old. He hasn't played in 2 years.
No, Dennis Schroeder makes $2 million more than PJ Tucker. So they swapped those salaries so that they would reduce payroll by $2 million right there. And they thought they had another move lined up that would deliver Kyle Anderson to Toronto. And essentially his $8.8 million would be off of their books. And right now, they're $7.8 million above the luxury tax and $3.1 million above the first apron. If you get out from under the first apron, you are able to be in the buyout market. And obviously the luxury tax for repeater tax purposes, it'd be great to get out. They intended for Kyle Anderson to get dealt, and they're going to have work to do there. But I'll close by saying this. I think that Kyle Anderson the good thing is that his last year of his deal is non-guaranteed, so it doesn't jeopardize space beyond 2026.
Alex, if they end up keeping Wiggins past 2026, is that problematic for you?
No, and apologize. I'm not sure if I'm lagging. It doesn't look great on my end, but
You're good.
no, good to know. No, I'm not too worried about it. I was already not one that was like very high on the prospects of summer 2026 before all the Fox and Lucas stuff happened, and KD as well. Might as well throw his name into that category. Because now at this point, KD is like the last guy standing. So, maybe they want to get in that game in a year. I don't think KD's going to sign an extension with Phoenix, so maybe that's worth going for. But yeah, like that would be the roadblock at this point, is that Wiggins could get in the way of that. But I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think he'll be a movable contract, no doubt about it, unless God forbid something happens with his health, right? I think other than that, he'll be a movable contract if they get to that point. I don't think it's that big of a deal as far as like when you compare it to the Bradley Beal thing, where it's like it's this huge contract and he's not gonna waive the no trade clause for just about anybody. So as when you're comparing it to just like the other offer reportedly available, yeah, like this deal is absolutely a win, specifically when you look at the circumstances. Am I live?
Nah, now you are, but it's okay. I mean, look, Jimmy's gone, but the helicopters are still here. So that's. I thought maybe the helicopters would take Jimmy away to Golden State, but it didn't happen. By the way, I just want to mention this because I mentioned this on Twitter. This 2-month ordeal, and it is a 2-month ordeal at this stage, all started with Alex and I doing a podcast on December 6th, just raising the prospect of trading Jimmy Butler before this started to become a big mess. Actually, Phoenix came in the next night, which is what created a lot of this mess. The day after, and the first team that you and I talked about, I'm going to find the clip in the morning after I get some sleep, was Golden State. So 2 months, and we ended up right back where we started about Golden State.
Are we adding this to the Ethan Jinx tree?
Well, Heatbeat's blaming me apparently because of the Durant stuff or something like that. Apparently, I have control of these situations. Brady, let's get to the basketball fit. Okay. I'm not aware of that, Carl. Anyway, let's get to the basketball.
Defending the house.
No, we're going to get to defending the house. We're going to hit that by the end of this. How do you think Wiggins specifically plays into this first group? Right? Is he going to be? He's never been a great passer. That's not really his skill set. He's never been a big assist guy. He's not a volume scorer, but he scores enough, and he's a good 3-point shooter. How do you think Spo will deploy him?
I think he will kind of, honestly, I mean, it's the easiest thing to say, but somewhat of the spots that Jimmy usually occupies, where I think this lineup, okay, so Tyler, Duncan, Ware, Bam, and Highsmith, I've not been a fan of Haywood in that lineup specifically. Like, I think Haywood needs to play real minutes just because they need it for defensive purposes, but I don't know about that lineup specifically. It almost feels like they're missing a guy that's not named Tyler Hero that can get to the paint off the dribble. They just need somebody to be able to generate that, and that's kind of the one thing that I'm looking forward to seeing from Andrew Wiggins is just the stuff, pick and roll and isolation, just the ability to get to the paint and make a play, finish around the rim. They use him, in Golden State in those little mid-post reps. So I think it's kind of like more athletic, some of the reps that Jaime gets where he kind of operates in that range. He's a little bit stronger than he looks, so he can get to his spots. He has a decent flip shot. So I think there's some stuff on the inside that's interesting. And as you mentioned, he's shooting 38% from three. So it's somebody that you can play off the ball. Obviously, he plays a lot off the ball in Golden State, and it's looked good. But I'm interested to see. I'm mentioning the offensive stuff, but I think the real thing is just defensively getting another guy that, as much as you mentioned about him being a three, I think they'll use a lot of Andrew Wiggins at the two. I think that's what ultimately will get interesting here is now you can run three bigs with Jovic, Bam, and Ware. And ultimately, the issue with that before was I thought they were one defender short of that lineup. And now you can put Wiggins next to Tyler in the backcourt. Now you have a really interesting, fun lineup you could deploy at certain, closing situations and stuff. So I'm interested in the defensive side just to see how that looks because every time, players with that type of ability enter the system, it always looks interesting, at least at the beginning, because that's the energy part of the tenure. But offensively, it'll be interesting. I think they're going to move it around, figure things out as time goes. But pretty similar to the Jimmy stuff, but just a little bit more time as a spot-up shooter. Even though Jimmy was a spot-up shooter for the last 3 months in a Heat uniform, but just a better version of that, what we were seeing.
A couple of other housekeeping notes here. Jimmy Butler will return on March 25th. Golden State has not visited Miami yet this season. I felt that should have been a guarantee. You had to trade him to a team that was going to come in here at some point this year. So March 25th, if you don't have tickets, get them now, because that will be interesting. I will ask you guys this. We're going to do much longer episodes about all of this. We're going to break down the trade even more. We're going to do after tomorrow. We've got plans. We're going to, by the way, Discord. If you're not on Off the Floor, make sure that you subscribe there. You can find the link here in the description. We will be doing trade coverage, trade deadline coverage there tomorrow. Also, they're going to be doing a stage show on there after we're finished tonight. So check it out. The rest of our group is going to be on there tonight. And I know Adele, Matt, I think Eternal, some of them are going to be on there. So check that out for sure. But again, March 25th, I'll just ask you guys here as we go forward on this, and we will get to defending the house. March 25th, is there a tribute video, Greg? Didn't win a championship. That has been their standard.
I'm going to say no. There's no tribute video. Too icy.
What are we doing,
on the
man?
way out?
This hurts Alex's heart. I understand he gave great memories, but I mean he handled this horribly.
The Heat.
Sorry.
I'll save some of my other feelings when it comes to this for another day because we've got plenty to talk about. They can come out of this looking like the bigger man if they just give them a stupid tribute video. No one's telling you to hang the jersey from the rafters right now. Just give him a damn 1 minute tribute video. The guy carried you to 2 finals and gave you performances on par with Wade and LeBron. What are we doing? We're going to continue the petty shit after it's over?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Can we just please stop it?
Oh, the helicopters are
The
back.
helicopters came.
The
They're
helicopters
going
are
to give
back.
him 22.
No, they're going to give him 22, aren't they? They're going to give Wiggins 22.
Wiggins is going to wear 22. I'm not
I
reporting
think
that.
Wiggins
but you might
may
as well
take a
report
different number.
So they got another 22. And well, James Jones wears 22, right? That started all this, Brady. You saw James Jones talking to Jimmy Butler in the hallway on December 7th, and that started our long national nightmare because what you said, he wore it better than him, right? That was the conversation that they had. So Wiggins wearing 22, I think, is almost a given. By the way, Jimmy, if you haven't heard yet, Jimmy's going to wear 10 for Golden State. Let's do this real quick. We're going to do a full pot on this going forward as well. Does Jimmy elevate Golden State? Are they contenders now, Brady?
Contenders? I mean, I think they're going to be a better team. They elevate them in that way. I think they're going to be a decent playoff team, but I don't know about contender. And I'll say, just to kick back to the thing, because I didn't get my answer. First of all, I think he should get a tribute video, but I'll say this. You asked me that. I feel like you asked us that question when Gabe Vincent and Max Strus were coming to town earlier after they departed. So the fact that you were asking if Max Strus and Gabe Vincent were going to get a tribute video, and they didn't, obviously, and now you're saying, Jimmy Butler's, not getting one. It sounds crazy. It just sounds crazy to say out loud. I understand how it ended, but I'm with Alex. I think he should, but I don't think he does.
I want to get to a couple of quotes here, and then we'll close because we got a lot more to get to tomorrow. But our guy, Naveen Ganglani, has put these on the host updates on Off the Floor. A reporter asked Eric Spoelstra, or said after the game, "We won't ask you about the trade." Spo said, "Thank you." The reporter said, "Is there any relief to have clarity?" And he said, "Sounds like you're still asking me. Let's table this. I promise I'll give you an answer." Was
Ira there?
Yeah, Ira's there. He's in Philadelphia.
He didn't ask.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't get to it first, or he didn't get downstairs, or he was working or something like that. But that is definitely an Ira question. And this is, by the way, Naveen put this on Off the Floor as well. And I think Eric Reed's good at this stuff. This is what he said. Of course, the Heat broadcaster since the very beginning, play-by-play man. History time will pass on. He will go down as one of the great players in franchise history, but it was a difficult, sad, ugly ending. It's over now. The clarity is good for everybody. And I got to say, I agree with that. They had to get something done. I was not necessarily there, and I was like, okay, they can be uncomfortable and they can deal with it. But then the prospect, when we did that podcast with Brian Goins about the prospect of him opting in, that would have been such a nightmare. It just would have been such a nightmare. If he opted in and you're going to training camp with this hanging over them, And I just felt they had to get a neutral deal. To me, this is not an A deal. It's not an F deal. It's a B-, C+ deal. And you just get yourself out of this situation.
I wouldn't even give it a B under the circumstances.
Under the circumstances. But I think if you're just evaluating it as a trade for a player that you weren't sure if you were extending, even beyond the issues that he created, a player you weren't sure if you were extending. And by the way, that's the other thing we haven't mentioned here on the podcast. There's so much to get to. He is getting his extension. He's getting his $121 million. The Heat was going to be 113, right? So they were able to give him 121 over 2 years. So he is getting his extension. His contract lines up with Steph Curry's, and they're going to be playing with Draymond Green, which is going to be very interesting to see how that works out. I don't see a whole lot of spacing on the floor beyond Steph Curry. They have the greatest spacer in NBA history, but beyond that, there's not a lot of space.
I guess teams.
Right? I mean, well, Buddy Hield is still there, right? So they do have one more shooter in the mix there. So that will help them a little bit. All right, let's play Defending the House.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
All right. I don't even know where to go with this. What should we do for this? I don't know. I really don't.
Okay, how about this? They got Andrew Wiggins in this deal, and a strong defender, right?
Yes.
We've been talking, complaining, especially me, all season about how bad their defense has been. So yeah, like adding Wiggins to that lineup. And by the way, like for as much as I appreciate Haywood and his defense, Wiggins is much more of a scoring threat. I'm not going to call him a scorer, but he's much more of a scoring threat as far as a shooter and somebody who can attack closeouts, be an athletic finisher. Not expecting Wiggins to do a whole lot of shot creation, nothing like that. But, definitely a more, worrisome offensive threat if you're comparing him to Haywood. So you get the defense there. You get a slight offensive upgrade, just somebody that'll help stabilize the rotation. And by the way, PJ Tucker, good defender, but he's not going to play. He's not going to play. Somebody who built his reputation on defense, not going to play. But hey, maybe their defense improves a little bit from this. You might be able to count on that.
We appreciate our guy Marcus Schultz pointing out that was Ira that asked that. So yes, we figured. So there you go. All right, I just want to set the table here for the next couple of days. First thing, they're still looking. Okay, that I know. They're still looking to make moves. I don't know that anything. I don't know that anything big is. Well, I got aggregated on the Durant thing today, and then that whole thing fell apart right after it. But it is what it is. But they are still looking to make moves. So they're not, and obviously the Kyle Anderson thing has to be resolved one way or the other. And they'll be working hard, I think, to get that done going forward. As far as again 2026, we'll do more podcasts on that going forward in terms of what they can do. I do think that Wiggins contract is going to be tradable if they need to. Prior to that, that's one of the reasons I was okay with them taking it. My big thing is this, okay? I think there is going to be a sigh of relief from the players and the coaching staff. They needed this to get done. This was a mess. I know that Ira had a report that players would welcome him back with open arms. That was not every player, trust me. Some stuff will start to come out here over the next few days. I don't know how honest certain people are going to be, but there's going to be a sigh of relief. It had become untenable. That was the word that the Heat had used. They needed to make some kind of a move here. I just think I think the overall thing, and Alex, this is where I agree with you. I just think it's unfortunate. I don't think it had to play out like this. I think if he to me, again, the Heat could have handled this better. you could have made the argument they could have extended him. I was not totally against that. We talked about it many times over the offseason. I was kind of 50-50 on whether to just give him the extra year. But once they didn't, they will say they did not have any trade options for him this summer, that they actually looked into it, not strongly, but they looked into it. There wasn't anything there. I know that's contrary to what some have reported. And then they decided to roll into the season thinking they were going to get a motivated Jimmy Butler. But something went off the rails.
And made comments about it in public.
What's that? Well, that the comments that Pat made certainly did not help. Okay, but he did come to training camp. He did have a good camp. Okay, he had a good camp. They felt good about it, and there were a series of flashpoints. If you talk to people on his side, they will say that it had a lot to do with role, that they tried to have conversations with the Heat about it. The Heat will say it just had to do with him wanting to get out to get a contract extension from somebody else, specifically Phoenix, which they believe had promised him a contract extension because they would be able to get out of the Beal deal. They were not able to get out of the Beal deal. Phoenix screwed up Phoenix did not evaluate the situation properly, in my view, created a mess, and we ended up here. And so that's kind of where it's at. We're blaming Tobin. I'm not going to blame Tobin. Anyway.
That's about
Alex,
the question he asked and the one that prompted him to that prompted Pat to talk about Jimmy and all that. That's what he's referring to.
Okay. That's we should have traded Jimmy.
I mostly brought up the comments to shout out our guy
helicopters.
Daniel Firesword, who we accidentally banned last show.
I want to apologize for that. If you're listening on the podcast feed, you're not going to understand this, but I accidentally hit the ban button last night. I did not mean to do that. I just haven't gotten a lot of sleep lately. Daniel Firesword, I did not mean to ban you. So I'm not Riley and you're not Jimmy. I don't want to have a big issue here. I don't want you to demand a trade from our post-game feeds. I apologize for that. All right. That's all we're doing tonight. We're going to get to a lot more of this tomorrow. Wow. We've got, it's enough at this point. We got like 12 podcasts we got to set up. We'll be back tomorrow again, off the floor. Probably may do a playback as well. So make sure you check that out. Playback.tv/5RSN. And of course we'll have a podcast to wrap up the trade deadline. I know people want them to trade Terry Rozier. I can't promise that.
Not over.
This game I didn't watch tonight. Apparently he was pretty good. Have a good night.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.